The unexpected halt of proceedings sent a clamor around the courtroom. But outside the Bailey, where Londoners knew nothing of the secret trial within, it was a typical still night. Then, at a little past 8 o'clock that evening, Mr. Sholmes and his partner returned to Baker Street. "We have returned, my dear fellows. Welcome back to Britain, and thank you for your timely help." "Think nothing of it. I believe you've had an even more wearing day than Mikotoba and I, no?" "You could say that. We were on the brink of defeat in court earlier." "So this prosecutor Asogi had you on the ropes, did he? And he's your best friend, you say?" "Well, he's not really the man I knew in Japan anymore. Kazuma's changed." "Oh, Mr. Naruhodo. I mean, it's incredible to think that he'd even entertain the idea of acting as the Reaper's assassin." "Well, nevertheless, you must introduce me. After all, I've only met the young man as a corpse. When all this started almost a year ago now. Sholmes still hasn't told us the truth about what really happened. About the motivation for what he himself described as a great detective's lie. Now then, I must say, it's really quite a journey all the way to France." "Well, it is another country, Sholmes, so what's the news of Judge Jigoku?" "We took him to Scotland Yard. The investigating detectives there have a lot of questions for the man." "Poor Professor Mikotoba. This must be quite a shock for him." "Ah, yes. I picked this up at the telegraph office on our way home." "What is it?" "Surely you haven't forgotten already. I put upon you, for the matter, only yesterday." "You put upon me, Sholmes. I had to fill out the telegram to Japan and foot the bill as well." "Oh, you've had a reply?" "What was so urgent, Sholmes?" "Such matters can wait until later. I'm far too hungry for an involved conversation." "Well, that's good news, because supper is ready, everyone." "Ah, and what a feast it is. If I were none the wiser, I'd think the trial were won already. Roast beef, kippers, stew, steak, and kidney pie, Yorkshire pudding. Oh my god. Tomorrow could be a very long day, so eat up." "In that case, I think I'll seat myself just here. This place appears to be the only one set with a helping of pheasant as well." "Oh, sorry, Hurley, not there." "Why not? Are we in set places this evening?" "Yes, and that place is for Susie's daddy." "For me?" "That's right. I made it especially for you, Professor Mickey." "I see. Well, that's terribly kind of you." "It's a shame, really." "What do you mean?" "Well, for a brief moment I believed it. That Susie and I were half-sisters, I mean." "Oh. Iris, do you mean?" "Yes, I know now. I overheard yesterday. I secretly listened to the conversation you had after I tricked you all into thinking I'd left." What? "The misunderstanding arose because of that autopsy report from 10 years ago. But actually, it turned out that neither Dr. Wilson nor Professor Mikotoba are Iris's father." "Yes, about that, Iris. You know, I know. You can't tell me at the moment." "Oh, Iris. The pheasant is by way of an apology. I'm sorry for eavesdropping." "Oh, no, that's quite all right." "Then why don't I get any apologetic pheasant?" "So just who is Iris's father? I suppose that's not something we'll be finding out today." "We're running out of people. So then, let us dine, while our largely pheasantless plates are still piping hot." "A fine idea, Sholmes. It all looks absolutely delicious. Eat as much as you like, there are always seconds." This could be our last chance to ask questions before tomorrow's trial. About that telegram from Japan and Kazuma. I can't let this opportunity slip away. What you doing over there, Sholmes? Sholmes, what are you doing? Surely it's abundantly clear that I wasn't brooding over Mikotoba's refusal to share his pheasant with me. Nevertheless, I felt the need to withdraw from the social circle for a while and look on with hungry eyes. Sorry, Hurley, but I cooked that pheasant especially for Susie's daddy. Even though I've played the role of father to you for far longer. Sholmes, could I discuss some matters with you? Certainly, my dear fellow. I find myself quite in the mood for a spell of conversation. No doubt you're hungry to learn more of my deep love of game. That could mean something quite different. I can probably contain my curiosity on that one. You needn't look at me in that fashion. In what fashion? It seems that because before we discuss the pheasant, we have some rather unpheasant matters to discuss. So, what was in the telegram you received back from Japan? Ah, this? I think my lucky stars it arrived in time. Record found as indicated. Duplicate follows. K. Asogi / A. Shin. T. Gregson / J. Wilson. What? Those 4 names. We've come across that exact same list before. A long time ago now, but yes. They came up in that unforgettable case last spring. What appeared to be a simple case of aggravated murder turned out to be masking monumental intrigue. A plot that involved the sale of British governmental secrets to foreign states. In exposing the means by which those secrets were being leaked, we deciphered a fragment of a message. K. Asogi, A. Shin, T. Gregson, J. Wilson. But we didn't find the names out until the case was over, and we never did get to the bottom of what they meant. All we knew was that the information had been sent by somebody in the British government to somebody in Japan. So why are the names coming up again now? Yes, where did the sender of your telegram discover them, Sholmes? I have here the message I had wired yesterday. Allow me to read it to you. Enter Judge Jigoku's office undetected and investigate telegram records. Expect to find communication from British dated 1 year ago. List of 4 names, need by tomorrow, Naruhodo. I sent it to a detective I know who specializes in clandestine missions of this nature. You asked Inspector Hosonaga to undertake such an onerous task for you? And in my name? I wonder what guise he opted for this time. My dear fellows, it was a matter of great urgency, you understand. Anyway, the list of names was found in Seishiro's office, as Sholmes predicted. So you mean that mysterious collection of names that was sent from Britain to Japan was... It was sent to Judge Jigoku. He was the intended recipient. I don't believe it. But that doesn't answer the question of what the list names actually signifies. It's a hit list. I did formulate a hypothesis about that. But without a shred of evidence, I couldn't possibly have shared it. Mr. Sholmes looks deadly serious for once. All the people on that list are dead, except for Kazuma. That tragedy we had to go through on the SS Buria. It was all for nothing. Cosma wasn't dead at all. We were completely taken in by the lie you told us. Your great detective's lie. I took no pleasure in deceiving you. However, at the time, all that concerned me was preventing the young man's study tour from taking place, whatever the cost. What? I capitalized on the events that transpired that day to see he was sent back to Japan. His remains, you mean? Precisely, Miss Osato. And then, I made sure that somebody else was sent to Britain in his stead. Oh my, you mean... The arrangement between our two countries was already in place. One university lawyer and one judicial assistant to be accommodated on a study tour. In other words, by arranging for someone else to fill the place originally intended for Mr. Asogi, I would successfully prevent the man from arriving on our shores for several years at least. Wait, do you mean to say that it was all in aid of stopping Kazuma coming to Britain? That's why you... Think back, Mr. Naruhodo. Was there not somebody who was quite casually urged you to continue on the voyage to England? The terms of this study tour were negotiated by the Department of Justice in Great Britain and Japan. In light of Mr. Asogi's unfortunate death, I am afraid the study tour can no longer go ahead. My dear fellows, the majority of problems have an extremely simple solution, you know. All you require is one lawyer, and the study tour can continue. But there's no one else with the necessary qualifications. The voyage to London promises a good month. Ample opportunity, I would say, to find another lawyer. So, you manipulated me? I've often remarked on the extraordinary lengths to which friendship will drive a man. I was quite sure that you would rise to the challenge for your late friend. I don't believe it. But if it was all contrived... I mean, what happened was treated by the authorities as murder. A woman was mistakenly arrested as the perpetrator. What did you suppose became of her? Naturally, I didn't allow the misapprehension to have any serious repercussions. Thank God, to be honest. I never really felt good about her getting arrested. I subsequently explained everything and assisted the unfortunate soul in finding the foreign refuge she sought. Thank God. I'm happy for her. I seem to remember Miss Osato and I had some rather strong words for her. Well, she was certainly not devoid of all guilt. She deserved every word, I'm sure. I wonder if she made it to America, though. I'm afraid I simply cannot comprehend it. Why would you go to such lengths, Sholmes? Why were you so determined to stop Kazuma-sama from reaching Britain? The truth is, 12 months ago, there was already a very tangible omen of the impending tragedy, you see. Oh. An omen that, at this very moment in time, is close at hand. An omen of all these tragic events that already existed. We need to find out what Sholmes knows. So, do I show him something now? Well, hold on. Where's Mikotoba at? He's probably in the room still, right? Not over there. Never mind. What am I presenting him with, then? Oh yeah, let's read this. Is it just that? It's just that. Okay. What do you want me to show him? Really? You want me to show him this? He's the one that gave it to me. There was no room for doubt with your instructions in this telegram, Sholmes. You were very clear that it was Jigoku's office that should be searched, so... You obviously knew that's where the list of names would be found. Yes. But we only learnt of those 4 names just over 6 months ago now. And only because they appeared as part of a top-secret government communication that were leaked. That's true, yes. But at the time, you were unaware of the background. You see, those 4 names were wired to Japan. Around 6 months before that, approximately this time last year, in fact, you were both still in Japan. It really would be hypocrisy on my part to reprove others for intercepting state secrets. Because after all, I'm perpetually eavesdropping on communication. You are? You're perpetually doing what? Never mind the details, but you should know. No secret is safe from Herlock Sholmes when he has designs on knowing it. Oh my, Mr. Sholmes, what a fabulous line. Now, 1 month after that list of 4 names were wired to the recipient Jigoku in Japan, Dr. John H. Wilson was murdered. As soon as I learnt of the incident, a hypothesis rapidly took shape in my mind. As it turned out, I was partly correct and partly mistaken. Nevertheless, it was the beginning of all the tragic events that were to follow. Sholmes, please, tell us all you know. Tell us about these 4 names and the tragedy to which they're all connected. As I said, when I learnt of Dr. Wilson's murder in Japan, my mind immediately turned to those 4 names, because you see, there was someone else on the list who I believe to be recently deceased. What? Who? A Shin, as it was transcribed in the Japanese script. In actual fact, Miss Asa Shin. That was a familiar name to me. She was a professional killer known well among London's unsavory classes. Oh, I see. But she had completely vanished from existence several months before Wilson's murder. So I came to the logical conclusion that she had herself been killed. And accordingly, I became fearful for the lives of the remaining 2 persons on the list. Ah, Kei Asogi and T. Gregson. Owing to our proximity, I decided to take measures to protect Gregson myself. But I determined it would be safest if young Asogi were to stay away from Britain. Ah, so that's why you went to such lengths to prevent his study. Exactly. So, you already knew who Kazuma-sama was, Sholmes? Oh yes, Sholmes and I have exchanged correspondence for years. I'd recounted many tales about Asogi to him in my letters, and the news of Dr. Wilson's death, of course. So, Dr. Wilson is dead then? I didn't know. Oh, Iris. I know he wasn't my daddy, but still, that's very sad. I'm so sorry, Iris. We knew the significance of the name, obviously, but we just couldn't bring ourselves to tell you. No. But what you just told us, Sholmes, doesn't completely tie in with the facts that there's one big hole in your hypothesis. A big hole, Naruhodo? Ah, yes. You mean about Asa Shin, I presume. Oh, of course. Exactly. She wasn't killed, was she? She was in Japan posing as a visiting student under the assumed name of Giselle Brett. I'm glad you're keeping up, my dear fellow. But I only became aware of that fact 2 days ago, in the foyer of the Great Waterloo Hotel. Ah. And upon hearing that startling revelation, the hypothesis that I'd formed surrounding those 4 names was completely turned topsy. What? Topsy? What do you mean when you say your hypothesis was turned topsy, Sholmes? I had believed all 4 names on the list to be the names of victims. However, I was mistaken. Very much so, Asa Shin was a killer. As was, turns out, Gregson. So this telegram is a list of both victims and killers, is it? Indeed. And it would seem that Miss Shin, Was dispatched from Britain with the sole intention of dispatching Mr. Wilson. Her visiting student status being merely a front. Ah. Which would of course explain why no motive could be determined for her actions. So the real reason for Dr. Wilson being killed by assassin is because he was the target of an assassination. And forearmed with that knowledge, a fresh consideration of this telegram puts the list in a very different perspective. What do you mean? You a slow bitch. Well, does it not strike you? There is another among the four, who subsequently became a visiting student. Oh, you mean... But of course, a name you know only too well. You mean Kazuma? He did say in court earlier today. Yes, on the 31st I accompanied Inspector Gregson to Dunkirk in order to carry out a mission. And the mission was the assassination of the Mark. Young Mr. Asogi accepted that mission a year ago now. Surely not. What a journey we've been on together, huh? In conclusion, this document is a contract of sorts. An international agreement, one might say, detailing an assassin exchange. How could Kazuma possibly have gotten involved in something like that? Ah, yes. And just switch place, the old switcheroo. Let's assume that we have two parties, each wishing to dispose of a distinct individual. Those two parties then make a contract to swap their respective assassination targets. That would be an assassin exchange. So to begin with, the British assassin is dispatched as a visiting student to Japan when she kills her target. And then the Japanese is dispatched as a visiting student in Britain to eliminate his. It certainly does sound like an exchange. But what on earth is the point? Don't forget, Naruhodo, that the British assassin at least escaped conviction, thanks to diplomatic immunity afforded by a consular jurisdiction. Ah, yes. Such jurisdiction would be null and void under the terms of the new treaty between our countries. So the fact that it was brought into play suggests intervention at the very highest levels. The highest levels. These murders were two sides of the same coin, linked not by a common motive, but by contractual agreement. As such, they appeared utterly unrelated, yet in truth, the assassins were complicit in one singular devilish scheme. That dissociation and the safeguard of diplomatic immunity were, I believe, the motivation behind this plot. But wait a minute, Sholmes. If this telegram really is describing the exchange of assassins, as you're suggesting, it would mean that the Japanese target was never Seishiro Jigoku at all. It would mean Asogi's target was Inspector Gregson. Yes, Kazuma was here for Gregson, so it turns out, yes. So Judge Jigoku wasn't actually the mark. Yes, that's exactly what it would mean. I hold myself personally responsible for failing to keep the inspector safe. Sholmes. I told him of my fears and implored him to seek a transfer to an overseas position. Obviously, with the young pickpocket in tow. Yes, Gina. Come to think of it, Inspector Gregson did mention that to us at the Great Exhibition, that he would be transferring to the Paris police and taking Gina with him. But without informing me, he engaged in one last assignment, it seems. And sadly, it turned out to be his very last. This is too much to take in. We have learned a lot about a lot of people today, haven't we? Alright everyone, that's been quite enough of that serious talk for one day. Isn't it early? I mean, look at the time. Ah, quite right. We must conclude our preparations for tomorrow. What preparations? Well, I think I shall make my way back to my hotel room now. This has certainly been a night to remember. It is a little sad, though. I mean, I'd like the idea of you being my daddy. Don't like that. But then Susie would have been my big sister. I'm sorry, Iris. I know, Iris. I was thinking quite the same thing. Were you? But if somebody like me would be worthy, I would be delighted to become your sister. What? Really? Oh yes, without question. So, you'll teach me all the ways you know to throw Runo to the floor? Yes, yes, of course. It would be my pleasure. You didn't have to agree quite so readily. Oh, but wait a minute. If Susie's going to be my big sister, you could be my big brother if you want, Runo. That might make things a little uncomfortable. I mean, yes, of course. If you'll have me, I'll gladly be your brother. Well done, Iris. You know, by proxy, we're trying to... Now, by proxy, that means Sosato and Naruhodo are also related, which would be a little weird. Let's not do that, shall we? Well done, Iris. We must always be mindful of feelings. I've raised you so well. Because being sensitive is your strong suit, naturally. Right, I'm going to work extra hard for tomorrow now, because it's for my big brother and sister. What is all this talk about preparing for tomorrow? Dude, I can't wait for them to cannon blast into the fucking courtroom with the vital piece of evidence. Good luck in court tomorrow. I'm expecting a sterling performance. I'll do my very best, of course. So the overnight break in the trial's proceedings became a crucial turning point, exposing new truths whilst posing new conundrums. That list of 4 names in the telegram in Jigoku's office, and the extraordinary assassination in which my best friend had somehow become involved. I felt as though I'd been plunged into an even greater darkness all of a sudden. But at the same time, I felt sure I would see the light again soon. Because I was lucky enough to have the most wonderful family in the world standing steadfastly behind me. Damn, really? That was only 30 minutes. Wow.